Hi everyone. It is a pretty good weather today, isn't it? And the place looks amazing. Anyways, let's get right to it. I'm going to read an extract from the book How to Survive a Startup. Why do startups fail? Chapter 16. And the amazing audio quality because of the wind. But anyhow, I spend a lot of time talking about failure because it's every entrepreneur's worst nightmare. There's no way to eliminate the risk, but there is a way to increase your odds of success. And that's by learning what others did wrong and staying vigilant so that you don't follow in their footsteps. We'll focus on a study by CB Insights where they analyzed more than 100 startup postmortems and came up with the 20 most common reasons startups go belly up. Many companies cried multiple reasons, so the percentages don't add up to 100%. Also keep in mind that this is the self-analysis from the startup founder's point of view. So it's far from perfect. Even with this inherent bias, it provides viable insights into why failures happen and how to avoid them. To be honest, I read this part, and it is probably one of the best lessons summarized up that I've came across so far. So let's get into it. Number one, 42% can't find a product market fit. This simply means their target customers didn't need or want the startup's product. This is the number one reason for startup failure. It's all too common for entrepreneurs to launch an innovative, groundbreaking product, only to discover nobody actually cares. Next one, 29% run out of cash. Many startups build a business but then hit a rough patch where they are short on cash, but have to make payroll or pay back their creditors. If they can't get a cash infusion in time, it can sink them, even though their long-term prospects might be excellent. Excuse my hair. Next one. 23% don't have a right team. The quality of a team can make or break a startup. Entrepreneurs often fail because their team can't execute. Sometimes it's the lack of key skill sets or an inability to adapt to changing circumstances. This is a solvable problem, but many entrepreneurs don't spend enough time team building upfront and pay the price down the road, wasting precious resources and time. 4. 19% get out competed. The world is hyper competitive. One day a startup can be way ahead, and the next it's surrounded by cutthroats. These can be big corporations with unlimited resources or low margin copycats dumping cheap products on the market. Either way, it can spell the end of a startup that doesn't have something defensible. Okay, let's continue. 18% experience pricing and cost issues. A lot of entrepreneurs set prices based on how they feel. They go with their emotions instead of relying on data and experience. Experienced experts determine the optional price point. It is easy to underprice a product. They fall prey to cost overruns, quality control issues, and manufacturing delays. Other times, founders overprice their products only to discover that their customers aren't willing to pay more. The more research and the market testing a startup can do upfront, the better. That explains a lot, doesn't it? A lot of it's like I was reading these issues, and because, well, I have successfully failed almost at least 7, but depends on how you define it, around 10 startups. So I can say a lot of these sound very relatable. Next one. 17% have poor products. It's not easy to build great products, but that's what it takes to win. In technology, it's usually a winner takes all world, where only the very best survive. That makes sense? Of course it does. The very best always survive. 13% ignore customers. Startups ignore their customers at their own peril. Engaging customers, gathering feedback, and collecting and analyzing data are essential to growing a business. Without doing this, a startup running blind, and it's only a matter of time before it smacks into a tree. Oh, you see? 14% suffer from bad marketing. A startup can have the best product in the world, but if no one knows about it, it won't go anywhere. There are simply too many products, and most people aren't even aware of half the choices, especially those from smaller companies. Excuse my amazing hairstyle, I just took a shower. But continuing on, 13% have bad timing. Timing is everything. If a startup's product is too early or too late, it can miss the window of opportunity. It does, doesn't it? 13% lose focus. Okay, let me actually give you examples about this. Before Facebook, there were other social platforms that weren't as successful because people weren't getting used to the internet thing yet. So they failed. And these days as well, if you launch another social network, there's already a lot of big fish in the market. Too early, too late. 13% lose focus. Trying to do too many things at once is more dangerous than doing too little. This was super thought-provoking. Staying laser focused on solving the most important customer problems is how startups succeed. I've seen many startups who try to do 5 different things at a time, and invariably all of them fail. He's talking about me. But anyhow, only by focusing can a startup go deep enough to gain the subtle insights that enable it to outcompete everyone else. In the early days of Salesforce, a major telecom offered a multi-million-dollar deal for a custom solution. This would have been the biggest deal in short history, but the offer was turned down because it would have distracted from Salesforce's main focus to build the best CRM, customer relation management platform possible. Why was that an example? Anyhow, moving on. 13% feud with investors or team. I've seen how disagreements between the founders can kill a startup. The same is true with investors. If communication isn't good, everyone is working at cross purposes. It's not long before a company implodes. Oh, I see. Okay, continuing on. 10% try a failed pivot. Changing directions isn't easy for a startup. Most pivots fail. Often it's like starting over, except the entrepreneurs lack the money, resources, and staying power to see it through. 9% lack passion. If the founders don't have a passion for their product, it's hard to keep going when they hit a low point, which is very common, almost on a regular basis. 9% have bad location. You know what they say in real estate? Location, location, location. It's what matters most for some businesses, especially in retail. Alright, what else? 8% lack financing or investor interest. It pays to know what investors are looking for. When a sector or technology falls out of favor, most VCs, venture capitalists, won't even bother taking a closer look. On the other hand, if the sector is hot and investors aren't biting, then there's usually something seriously wrong with the startup. That's interesting. 8% suffer legal challenges. It pays to know the law. Sometimes governments heavily regulate or outright ban certain businesses. Other times, it's patent litigation or employee lawsuits that can kill a startup. Retaining counsel from the best lawyers early on is important. Yes, things you don't consider when you're starting a company. Lawyers do play a role. Moving on. 8% don't use networks or advisors. Most entrepreneurs don't fully leverage their networks. It's not enough to have a board of advisors and a deep network. Startups need to know how to use those relationships effectively to achieve their goals. I have I know people, but if you don't take advice from them and if you don't connect with them, then seems a bit strange, doesn't it? 8% burn out. Getting exhausted and burned out is a constant problem. The right mental framework and a balanced life are key. Doing a startup is not a sprint, it's a marathon. Make sure to set aside time to go on walks, exercise, meditate, and spend more time with family and friends. A good strategy is to designate one day a week for activities outside of your startup, and don't let any business obligations interfere. Without this time, you can't have a balanced life. Duh, you're most likely going to. Just because you're putting in more work doesn't automatically guarantee success. Just because you're putting in more money doesn't automatically guarantee success. I had to learn this the hard way. Your productivity declines, you stop getting ideas, you stop taking risks because you're burned out. Opportunities just pass by and you don't adapt as quickly as you need to, and things fall back. So, work smart. Hustling is good, but you need to hustle properly at least. Continuing on, the last one. 7% fail to pivot. Too many startups continue on the same path for too long, failing to recognize that they're doing isn't working. Often by the time they admit their mistake, it's too late. They are out of money, time, and they will go on. Be prepared to change directions over and over. If it feels like time to pivot, it probably is. Continuing on, if you can avoid these 20 missteps, you're in good shape. But as well as, it's easier said than done. It's hard to recognize your own mistakes as they're happening, and even harder to take decisive action. Sometimes you realize there's a problem but ignore it because you're just too busy. You feel overwhelmed, or you can't come up with a viable solution. That's why it's critical to get feedback from mentors on the outside. They can point out problems that you don't even want to admit to yourself. Checking in with these mentors on a regular basis and getting their honest feedback can help you avoid the myopia that kills many startups. This is your reality check. Use it. Myopia is short-sightedness. You can't see far ahead. But yeah, 20 missteps most startups take. Just this chapter in this book was probably worth the whole read. There's 20 reasons. I used to underestimate like lawyers and stuff like that. I still haven't used any. But there have been like the first startup I started, I got scammed and weird stuff like that happened. And if I had known the legal things, it would have made things easier. Also with like some import-export stuff. You need to know the law. Being connected to investors, running out of cash, not having the right team, not having the right energy and effort. All of these are like really, really crucial steps that need to be given a thought. Just sit down one day and just look at all these 20 reasons and figure out where are you in all of them. Are you doing good or are you doing bad? And how can you improve? Right? And you will be a little more prepared, I hope.